I feel there's not any greater practice or greater discipline than what Buddha has always taught. Through and through, and Buddha also suggested for his disciples to teach to others if anyone comes to seek advice. That which in Tibetan is called chok shyi, which in English, if you translate, it would be very little needs and much contentment. We have to practice this as a community as well as also individually. In the modern world, in the 21st century, we live in a capitalist culture. We live in a consumerism culture. We are constantly being bombarded with the media and television and advertisement for how we could live our lives, how we could improve our lives, and how, therefore, we should buy more things, more things. And people are falling for it. People are falling for it badly. And in this way, people are also struggling to meet ends to be met in the end of the days, in the end of the weeks, in the end of the months, end of the years. Though some of this technologies, that is to make one's life more comfortable, that is to make one's life more convenient, that is to make one's life more easy. But having too many of them and need for too many of more, one's whole life is surrounded with gadgets. One's whole life is surrounded with machines. And all of this costs. And costs are not very cheap. Just the gas price that has rose so much in the last year, it is putting so much strain on many people's lifestyle throughout the world. And the consequent effect of this is, in the end, people are having very difficult time to make the wages to be able to pay for the things that they need in life. And then also there's this huge market of food, all kinds of international food available in the market. There's also a huge market for clothing. Internationally, designers, internationally marketing all over the world. And then also there's so many other things that when we actually simply walk through our street of a city, we get constantly tempted, constantly feel like we need this, we need this, we need to get this, we need to get this, or this looks good, that looks good. And our own discontent grows. Our addiction grows if we actually indulge in it. And in the end of the day, we sometimes feel regret. This whole consumerism culture is somewhat based on people's weaknesses. People's weaknesses of having this mind of sepa. Sepa is mind of craving. Since we have a mind of a craving, then this whole consumerism culture is somewhat preying on this sepa, craving. Since people have this weakness is being exploited deeply. And when this weakness is being exploited deeply, there comes much of the problems in the world. The problem of say that again. Problem of industrialization. My tongue is getting tired here. Okay, industrialization. Lamala, come here, you said this here. No, please do. I can't pronounce this well.
I hope I have the word right. Industrialization?
That's right. That's right. Thank you. And then also the problem of rich becoming richer and richer and richer, poor becoming a poor and poorer and poorer, the gap actually growing bigger and bigger and bigger. And then also the psychological, the emotional, envy and jealousy, discontentment, pride and arrogance, selfishness. All of this really comes from somehow individually not having some control over one's own sepa or one's own craving. And also the various corporations knowing that very strategically aiming how to get to that and how to explore that and succeeding. So in this way then there's so much imbalance in the world as we see. So, if a change is to come in the world, it has to come from people, and it has to come from individuals. And if an individual is to change, it is to change with the practice of very little needs, much contentment. Very little needs has to be a remedy against the mental state, that which always focuses on what one doesn't have, that which focuses on what is missing out of one's life, what others have that you don't have. Looking at the glass half empty. Basically, on this, then one feels one needs this. This is so, much important for oneself. Others have it. Why shouldn't one have it? And if one gets this, how one's life will be different. Essentially, nothing changes. We have got many things in this way, but essentially, life has not changed. Maybe perhaps it increases the craving furthermore. It increases the dissatisfaction furthermore. It increases the sense of fixation on outside to sort of fix inside of one's own mind furthermore. So this is like what the Buddha have said, drinking our salty water to soothe the thirst, but it increases the thirst furthermore. Like that in this consumerism culture, what we have been doing with ourselves, how we've been moving forward, has more so than ever have increased our own discontentment, increase our own craving, increase our own, therefore, unhappiness. So, the opposite of that is being able to minimize, letting go of all the extra things, really focusing on an essential need of oneself. And as much as you could, be independent in this way, appreciating that one is doing something for the good of one's own mind and for the good of the world and the earth. And therefore being able to rejoice in one's discipline. Therefore, to be able to rejoice in others' discipline. And being positive. Not always thinking what is missing, but what one already has. How many clothes one has in one's closet? How many shoes one has on one's shoe rack? How many actually purses one has in one's purse drawer. Or how many ties, how many gadgets, how many this and this, already what one has. Taking some time to self-reflect, taking some time to sort of see what that has done anything. And if it has done anything to cover the need, then feeling positive, having what already one has, content with it, not needing to buy more things, not needing to get more things. So being able to just roam around and with a big smile on your face, walk out of the door with the wallet and the credit card intact. So in this way, in the end of the day, such a beautiful city as a Paris, such a great street as a Champs-Élysées is truly a great city and a great street because you've been able to look at the architecture. You've been able to walk down the street looking at the people. Very interesting people all over the world coming. Not one has been in a sort of a bubble of a desire and been in a retreat in one of the shops or many of the shops. Being able to really open one's senses out to really appreciate what is sight there to see, what is sound there to hear, what is smell there to smell, what is taste there to taste, and what is there to feel with the physical sensations. Not being present in one's own bubble of desire. Being content. Being content here, I think, is much to really appreciate the basics of one's own human body, human birth, where we have the sights to see and eyes to see it, where we have the sounds to hear and the ear to hear it, where we have the smell, where also we have the nose to smell it, where we have the taste of this world and tongue to taste it, where we have the seasons change, so as also many physical sensations to experience and the physical body to experience them. And then where we have the mind, the brain. This human brain is supposed to be the biggest brain that there is. If this human brain is the biggest, it has to be used properly. It has to be used properly by being able to have the mind that is not just instinctually acting on itself based on its habits, without any self-reflections. That kind of brain and that kind of mind, even animals can have. Not to put down animals, Animals also have brain, and they are able to have the awareness. They are also able to act on their instinctual feelings. To cover their needs, basic needs. But in the animal world, mostly if you look at, it's prey and predators. Predators always preying on the prey. Human beings' brain is a different. Different in a sense, it of course has the awareness. It of course has the instinctual feelings to cover the needs of oneself. But it also has a critical intelligence there. This critical intelligence can self-reflect. This critical intelligence can know what is actually seemingly favorable but ultimately not favorable. What seems seemingly maybe a hard work, but ultimately what is the benefit of that if you execute that hard discipline. And in this way, human beings should be able to apply one's mind more with wisdom, more with the skillful means, more therefore to be able to really evolve themselves in the evolution of improving one's standard of life and standard of thinking and standard of higher, deeper aspirations of a spiritual realizations to be fulfilled. So, we have to appreciate this. We have to be able to put this in use. Having versus not having eyes to see would be a big loss. But if one doesn't appreciate while you could see, it almost as if there's no really a much of a great advantage to be able to see. One would relate to one's eyes, organ, and being able to see as a not any significant. Take it for granted. So it's like that, all of the senses, and particularly of the human mind, will take it for granted. And this human body and this human mind and this human senses just doesn't come easily in our possessions. It has come in our lives with much of our good merits in the past lives. So while we have it, we must really genuinely appreciate. And being able to appreciate particularly the human mind, then being able to really practice this very little needs and much contentment with discipline, not thinking that this is something that naturally comes to oneself. Naturally, very little needs, mind never comes to anybody. It has to come as a practice. Much contentment actually doesn't come in anyone's mind. It has to be practiced. It has to be related as a practice. And if one has this, then as Nagarjuna have pointed out, even one lacks much of the wealth, still you are very innerly rich. Even one lacks much of the worldly goods, you are still innerly rich with this very little needs, much contentment. And then particularly if we are able to work with our mind to even take the difficult circumstances adversary circumstances onto the path of Dharma, then there's nothing to fear. But this strength has to come from one's own inside. This mind has to come from one's own discipline. So in this way, if we can practice genuinely in a whatever ways that is appropriate to you, that is modestly your own attempts to practice the Buddha's teachings on the very little needs and much contentment, I think it is going to be the Buddhist a great practice for oneself to evolve in the spiritual path, as well as also to address the problems of the modern world, problems of the capitalist culture, problems of the consumerism culture, problems of the waste that is being produced, that actually is damaging the earth, that is damaging the environment. And then we have to pray. As a spiritual person, we have to pray. And we have to pray realistically for the benefit of beings, all mother sentient beings. But in this day and age, my feeling is it's very important to pray for world peace. I'm not saying this as a cliche that we should pray for the world peace, but it is really needed. And the world peace to come from new renewable energy source being found from the Dhammadhatu, the universal nature. Dhammadhatu, universal nature, is not transfixed in a one particular way. So, it should be a source of all possibilities. Since it is a source of all possibilities, if we pray that a new renewable energy is to come near future, I think scientists are going to discover a new renewable energy. Scientists already are saying that they are in the brink of breakthroughs with a new renewable energy. So if we can pray that way, and if there comes a new renewable, sustainable energy in the world, that also in abundance, like the energy of the sun, being fully able to harvest, and the technology and the science being not robbed and not parroted by the corporations, but able to be affordably available in all people's life, not having it to be capitalized for the profit only. This is not blaming anyone. This is just simply talking about what needs to happen in the world. And if there is that kind of a resource available for everyone, then there is no need of also fighting over the resource. And since there is no need to fight over the resource, maybe there is going to be more harmony among the countries, among the citizens of the world as a one global world. And then also maybe perhaps it is the time that the higher education in the Western education system, particularly in the business world, that this old way of profiting, using all the resources to just soothe one's need and profit, will not any more longer able to continue. Not any more longer it would be able to sustain itself. It'll run out. And also there will be too much unhappiness in the world. So therefore, maybe with the higher education, the corporations, the businessmen of the world becoming more environmentally friendly, more really being, of course, businessman, one has to make a profit, but not producing so much waste. And also, with what one has gained a lot of profit, being able to give some back to the country, to the poor people. Just governments around the world, if equally taxes the rich people and the poor people in the name of the democracy, it is just simply not right. It is simply not equal. Someone who is making $50,000 a year and someone who is making $50 million a year, equally being taxed on the percentage, it is simply not equal. So in this way, those who make a lot of money by being good at business, maybe having to pay a little more tax, and the tax being used for the infrastructure of the government, but for the need of the poor people, such as healthcare and so forth. It could then maybe perhaps slowly close the gap. Or at least there's some kindness being extended in this way, compassion being extended in this way, generosity being extended in this way. Of course, it is a law, but yet at the same time some real genuine kindness and compassion and generosity being extended in this way. And in this way, if the mindset of the world and mindset of the people are becoming more kind towards one another, compassionate towards one another, more friendly towards one another. Peace is definitely going to be the result of this. Harmony is going to be definitely a result of this. Mankind with the environment, among mankind's more also harmony and peace. And this is what we have to aspire. And we have to aspire this, and we have to make this prayer strong. Because what the scientists are saying is there's not much time left. If there's not much time left, only maybe 10 years, the maximum, for something to change in this way, then we need to actually pray much stronger for the real renewable energy, sustainable energy to come in the market much sooner. More psychologically and emotionally, changes taking place much sooner. More governments being in charge of the welfare of the people, really acting for the welfare of the people, not in welfare of the only rich. This is again not to actually point a finger to anyone. This is just, we are talking about what could be the substance of our prayers. And in this way, if we can actually pray as in a whole community and pray also individually, I have a great faith that something positive is going to change. Something positive is going to come. Any positive in the past has came from people's aspirations, people's prayers. And in order to pray and in order to aspire, first the vision has to be there. And if the vision is there, the prayer, the sincerity of the prayer, power of the prayer can do wonders in the world. So in this way, I encourage two things. In this modern times, in this time of decadent, that we must really practice very little needs and much contentment as the first practice, and then second, pray fervently for the world peace. And this, I feel, is as a responsible to convey as a Buddhist, as well as also as a teacher, as well as also a follower of a great sage, the Buddha himself, to spread his word. As he himself have said, if you are going to speak on anything, one particular thing, to others to bring some benefit, speak on the chok, shyi, very little needs and much contentment, how that is going to be such a positive thing in anyone's life. So I thank you all very much for being here and lending your kind ears to me for this. And please do contemplate on this. As the Buddha have said, which means one must examine the goal one must examine his teachings like a goldsmith examines gold. Do not take his teachings just because we believe in him. So it has to be on that principle that one has to examine on the points that I try to make here. And if you see some relevance to the time and relevant to one's own life, relevant definitely to one's own pocket, credit card debts, debts of all kinds, anxieties of all kinds that is constantly looming over one's head, I would be much obliged for you taking the time to hear me out and also taking it into your lives. Thank you all very much.